What's going on, guys? Rockley AC here, back with another deck profile. Today I will be showcasing the brand new Universe 10 archetype from the latest draft box series from Bandai. Today I will be pairing that up with the SS3 reboot leader. He has a lot of cool effects. I think he's kind of anti-meta in a couple different ways, and just super fun, super casual. And I think it can be competitive, but this is more on the casual, fun side for those here during the lockdown who want to take a step back from the competitive scene. So, real quick, we'll just go straight into it. The SS3 leader, he is a reboot leader. SS3, you can only have 6 energy placed up into your energy area. Auto, when this card attacks, you choose one card from your hand, put it in the bottom, and then you take a life and put it into your energy in rest mode. So obviously this is for a ramp style deck. You want to be able to bring out some of the larger bombs out sooner. But depending on the matchup, you may not want to lose so much of that hand because you don't really have a hand advantage on the front side. You're sacrificing it for basically energy ramp. So against decks like Piccolo, you don't really want to charge so much or use that effect. On the flip side, you only draw one, and then he has the same ability. You can only have up to 6 energy, and then when it attacks, you draw a card, and then it gets plus 5k for the duration of the battle, or duration of the turn. My apologies, that makes a big difference. And then at the end of your turn, you choose up to 3 of your mono blue energy and switch it to active mode. So this is basically a mono blue deck. You can build it in many different ways. I think it's somewhat of a dual land leader if you want it to be. But in this case, we are going to run mostly majority blue cards. So for the defense, for the negates, start off with 4 Universe 10 Assemble. This is one of the new cards from the draft box set. It's a counterattack. Negate the attack, then look at up to 3 cards from the top of your opponent's deck and put them back in any order. Then you get to place a Universe 10 card with an energy cost of 2 or less from your hand and play it. So really good for negating. It also rearranges the top 3 cards of your opponent's deck, which is kind of what this deck is about in terms of control. You kind of want to rearrange your opponent's deck in the early turns. So this works great against the leader swing. They attack, you negate, rearrange their top before they draw, and then you can put in play a 2 cost or less, which is relevant because there's some powerful cards in here that synergize with this card. So that is your main negate. Next are 3 of these Machorp. Sorry if I don't know how to pronounce his name correctly. But he is a negate as well, counter attack. Negate the attack, play this card, then choose up to 1 of your blue energy and switch to active mode. So it is a 1 cost negate with a 15k body on board. It's good because you could swing into it next turn. It's better than those cards that combo and put into rest because your opponent could just attack into it. So it's a nice secure body. And then I run 3 Dimension Magics. Even though this deck untaps, your point is to survive mid-range, so yeah, you could drop your bigger bombs, so you have to have some defense, especially against some aggro decks, Majin Buu, Gohan, etc. And then I put in 1 Mafuba because in this deck you could afford to tap out, untap, and then put this on one of their larger battle cards, things with dual attacks, triple strikes, all that. Alright, on to the super combos. I run 4 North Kai. He's just your typical draw when you have 4 or less life. Next are the pseudo super combos. The Ultra Instinct, Goku's Kamehameha. This card is amazing because it gives either leader or battle card 15k. And then if your energy is mono blue, which it will, on the offense, if you use this, on attacker, you get to draw a card. And if it's on the defense, you get to untap a mono blue energy. So it works a variety of ways. You can protect certain of your battle cards or your leader. The extra 5k on this is super powerful. So that's one of the best battle cards or at least defense cards you could play. Speaking of more defense is Barrier of Hope. Blue doesn't necessarily have a lot of ways to deal with battle cards. In essence, a lot of the cards nowadays will have like counterplay and all that. So something to get rid of Barrier is something that blue lacked. Barrier of Hope is a great card. I play it at 4 because of multiple reasons. You could choose up to one of your opponent's cards, ignoring barrier, and bounce to their hand and draw two. So there's a lot of threats like early that have barrier. If you're going against like Jiren, a lot of those one drops have barrier. Successor stuff, anything that has like a threat on board early that you want to get rid of, bounce back to their hand. Um, Good against hand destruction decks. Also, if they have something in play like a Gohan crit for Piccolo or something, bounce that back to their hand, draw two. And then it also counts as a 5K if you need to pitch it. So even if if you don't have the energy to tap three, even though you're gonna untap three with leader at the end of the turn, you could use it as a 5K. So I run 4 of those just to maximize on board removal. Next is 3 Sensibine. You can put 4 if you want. I realize with testing you don't really need so much of the untapping. You're really just defending and then waiting till you drop your bigger turns like mid game. But Sensibine does help, especially against other aggro decks in the format. All right, onto the battle cards. Some of the new cards from the draft box set. For Guasu, this is your main one drop that you want to play early. Activate main once per turn. Look at the top 3 cards from the top of your opponent's deck and put them back in any order. You want to try to mulligan for this turn 1 so you could kind of manipulate, see what they have, see what they're going to draw into. And it kind of synergizes with other battle cards in this deck. Speaking of which, the other 4 1-drops that I play is Jill Cole. He is a blocker, but during your turn, once per turn, your opponent reveals the top card of their deck, and if it's a battle card, this gains revenge till the end of your opponent's next turn. So this helps with a lot of the aggro, especially decks that want to kill you with a certain battle card, like a large threat, triple attack, or something like that, triple strike. They'll have to think twice about attacking because they got to get rid of this guy. So if they don't have any like main board removal, then it's clear sailing. So if you want to be very defensive, you play Universe 10, and then you get the blocker out to defend another attack. So a lot of ways to defend, and this also can synergize a little bit with Gawasu because you get to rearrange a top, and if it's a battle card, then you get revenge. So that's a fun one. Next are the main 2 drops that I play with the Universe 10 negate. Liliboo, I think that's her name. When you play this card, your opponent reveals the top card of their deck, and if it's a battle card, choose up to one of your opponent's battle cards and return to its owner's hand. Otherwise, draw a card. So this deck has a lot of removal, which makes sense because you don't want your opponent to build such a big board because, again, you're playing blue, and blue doesn't have so many ways to board wipe, in a sense. So with Barrier of Hope, you're getting rid of stuff with Barrier, and then stuff like Liliboo, you could bounce cards back to the opponent's hand. Otherwise, you could draw a card, so you can kind of keep hand parity depending. There's a lot of draw cards in here in this deck. Next is 2 Android 18. My apologies for not having the other one. I only got 2 draft boxes, and I guess this is a rare. But Android 18 is a great card to keep up with hand control. When you play her, you draw 2 cards. Nice and simple. She's a 20k body. Next are 2 Aboonies. This card is great depending on the certain matchup. If you're not going against like Nimbus decks or Hatchiak or something like that, then this could attack multiple times or through its effects. So it has Deflect. When you attack, you play 3 After Image tokens. They get 15k attack, and they have 5k counter power too as well. And if an After Image is in play, then Obuni can't be KO'd. The only downside, well, with this deck is playing against red because red has a lot of minus effects, so you'll definitely have to change up your strategy a little bit when you're playing against red. But other than that, Obuni can just swing with those 3 After Image tokens, and then he's a 20k. And this deck could kind of go mid-range. It could go aggro mid-range, or you could defend yourself to mid to late game, because when you're putting your cheap 15 cards through the negate, through either that or the Universe 10 negate, putting in play Liliboo, you'll have a bunch of 15k, battle cards in play, and it just puts pressure on your opponent. Next is 2 Gogeta. I've always liked this card in blue. It's just so expensive to play it at 5 energy. So when you have the opportunity to, if you're ramping up, this basically goes on like turn 4. If you're ramping hard, turn 3. But it is a removal 2 and draw 2. What I like about this is that most of the cards that I have in here bounce back to the hand, like Barrier of Hope and Lilibu. But Gogeta, you put the battle cards to the bottom, so they're not getting like a hand back, which is nice. 25k Double Striker. This could definitely close games. Helps you draw 2 cards, which is really strong. Next is one of the closers, again from the draft box, Master Roshi. He's really, really strong. He has critical, he has dual attack, and he has barrier. So if they can't like Champa the Trickster this or anything with that measure, then they're gonna have to deal with the crit attack. When you play this card, you get to choose up to 2 of your opponent's battle cards and place them at the bottom of the deck. So it's pretty similar to Gogeta. And then at the end of the turn, you draw a card. So I like playing this card a lot. That's why I run it at 3. You guys could definitely switch up the ratios, but just through testing, he just puts so much pressure, and your opponent wants to focus on negating and defending his attack because they're doing a 25k crit. The other finishers are Dragon Fist, SS3 Son Goku. So he comes in play when I can't deal with certain battle cards. If I know I'm not going to win that turn, I have to survive. I have to get rid of a threat. This bounces back a barrier card, and you untap 2 when you attack. So it's a strong card depending on the situation. You could either drop Dragon Fist or SS3, Master Roshi. And then the last card to finish it off is Black Smoke Dragon. He's just overall a really good SCR. He's good against like Surge Coup, decks that you want to keep up hand size against too, just or wiping the board like Jiren and go wide strategies. He's just very powerful, and you can afford to get that many in your drop to reduce the cost. So that is the main board. Sideboard, it really isn't defined. It really depends on your, I guess, locals, even though we're not really having locals at the moment. But if you want to have more competitive, diverse sideboard, you could do that. But the general ideas are basically like negates. So an extra Mafuba, an extra Dimension Magic, just to go against those aggro decks, Gohan, Majin Buu, anything that wants to attack you straight on. Kami, I think Kami's needed as 1 or 2 of. And these I don't have the certain ratios. I'm just showing you the cards. Kami, go wide board strategies, Jiren, and all that. Hit, he is one of the new draft box cards that are counterplays. Very strong. He could put back a 5 or less, and then he could also pop another card back to hand too. So he's very powerful. 3 cost counterplay, but you'll obviously have 3 energy when you untap, so it really works well in that deck. Jiren against like Gogeta 7, cards can go back to like the deck. Fu Shrouded is always a good solid backup, just to negate effects and everything. Next is Krillin the Cunning. What's nice about this card is that when you play it, you draw a card, then for the duration of the game, if you were to switch an energy to active mode through like a skill, then you'd have to first remove 5 cards from your drop zone, and sometimes your opponent may not have that, or it goes against like their SDR strategy like Black Smoke. So it's a very tricky card. It's good against the mirror match if they're running Senzu Bean, if they want to untap during the offensive turns, but it's just a nice card to consider playing in your sideboard. And then another card is West Kai, just to bounce some combos back if they're being really aggressive with their turns. Bounce card back, battle Raiders Warcry, all that stuff. So, and that is the general idea of the deck. Basically, you want to control your opponent's draws with those early game cards like Wasu and then negates and whatnot, and then be able to pressure your opponent through either mid game through your Obunuis and your Machorps, and then closing the game out with like Master Roshi's, putting a lot of pressure through there, being very defensive, and you have your defensive cards, you have your cards that get rid of barrier, and you have cards that bounce back. So with board removal and control, it's a super fun deck. Try it out. Let me know what you guys think, and see you guys next time.